Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive. And this one is particularly for those of you listening to Vintage Car Chronicles on Spotify. Today we are going to be talking all about the Lotus 7. It's a true legend in the car world. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff to go over today. Historical accounts, technical specs, even some personal stories about this iconic car.
It's really a fascinating car. I think one of the things that makes the Seven so special is it's not just a car, it's like an embodiment of a whole philosophy, and that philosophy continues to influence car design even today.
Okay, so before we get lost in like a sea of fiberglass and engine specs, let's maybe unpack this philosophy a little bit. We've got this image of the 7 as a car that's all about like raw driving thrills, lightweight, and, nimble stripped down to the essentials. But there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. To really understand the Seven, you have to go back to its creator, Colin Chapman, and his famous mantra, simplify, then add lightness. And this wasn't just some, catchy phrase he threw around. It was like a philosophy. And it was a philosophy that was really born from his experience building and racing his own cars.
So it's the guy who's out there, getting his hands dirty, constantly experimenting, and then translating those lessons into his car designs.
Yeah.
I was reading that he built his first car, the Lotus Mark R, back in 1948. More of a trials car than a racer. But you can already see like the seeds of the 7 being planted right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Chapman was obsessed with optimizing for performance. And for him, that meant shedding every ounce of unnecessary weight. It's almost like he saw weight as the enemy of speed and agility.
And that philosophy really took shape with the Lotus Mark 6, the 7's direct predecessor, which became a huge hit among club racers. It was already embracing that lightweight ethos, using a space frame chassis and minimalist bodywork.
Yeah, it was really a stepping stone. And speaking of stepping stones, the Lotus 7 itself went through a pretty fascinating evolution over the years. Ready to dive into the different series?
Absolutely. Let's start with the Series 1, the one that kicked off the legend back in 1957. What were the defining features of this original model?
The Series 1 was just pure, unadulterated driving excitement, aluminum body, a Ford side valve engine, and it weighed in at a featherlight 1,100 pounds. I mean, that's lighter than some motorcycles. No wonder it became an instant hit with club racers.
Wow. Okay, so imagine a car so light and nimble that it could just like outmaneuver anything on the track. I can definitely see why it became a legend. But it wasn't just about the weight, was it? What about the engine?
Yeah, so while the side valve engine might seem a bit underwhelming by today's standards, it was a reliable workhorse. And crucially, it was light. Chapman knew that every ounce mattered. There's even this great story about him swapping the prototype 7 for a friend's car during a dinner conversation, just proving how much he valued lightness.
That's hilarious. Talk about being committed to your philosophy.
hmm
Okay, so the Series 1 set the foundation. Let's move on to the Series 2, which debuted in 1960. What were the key changes and improvements in this iteration?
So with the Series 2, Lotus refined the design a little bit, made it slightly more road-friendly. But without compromising, its core principles, they simplified the chassis, swapped the aluminum nose cone for fiberglass, and started incorporating more readily available parts.
So they're finding ways to make it a bit more practical and affordable, which makes sense. Lotus was still a relatively small company at this point.
Yeah.
But they didn't sacrifice performance, did they?
Not a chance. In fact, Series 2 introduced the Super 7, which was a high-performance variant, powered by Cosworth-tuned Ford engines, some of them turning out over 100 horsepower.
Wow, that must have been a blast to drive. A lightweight car with a powerful engine. Talk about a recipe for thrills. But there's something else fascinating about Series 2 that I came across in our research. This clever tax loophole that they exploited.
Ah, yes. So to avoid purchase tax, Lotus actually sold the 7 as a kit car, and they cleverly provided disassembly instructions. So it was technically a collection of parts rather than a complete vehicle. It was brilliant.
Talk about thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So not only were they building fantastic cars, but they were finding ingenious ways to make them more affordable. Okay, on to the Series 3, which came out in 1968. What were the highlights of this model?
Series 3 saw some more refinement. They tackled the issue of the rear axle by using a much sturdier one from a Ford Cortina. And this dramatically improved the reliability and handling, especially under hard cornering.
And wasn't this also the series where the legendary Lotus twin-cam engine became widely available? I read that this engine was a game-changer for the 7, transforming it into a true giant killer.
Absolutely. The twin cam was like a technological marvel, originally developed for the Elon, and it was just this high-revving, smooth power plant that perfectly complemented the 7's lightweight character. I mean, it could really make the 7 fly.
So imagine taking this nimble lightweight car with a powerful twin-cam engine onto like a twisting mountain road. The sound of the engine, the wind in your hair, the feeling of the car dancing beneath you. It must have been an incredible experience. Speaking of pushing boundaries, the Series 4 arrived in 1970, and it was quite a departure from the previous models, wasn't it?
It was indeed. The Series 4 was a pretty controversial move. With its larger, more squared-off fiberglass body, it was an attempt to modernize the 7. But many people felt like it lost some of its essential character, that raw, elemental appeal. You know, it's fascinating how a design change can spark such strong reactions.
It really is. And this desire to modernize ultimately led to Lotus selling the rights to the 7 right. It's almost like they were moving on to different things, leaving behind their kit car roots.
That's right. By 1973, Lotus was really shifting its focus towards more luxurious and sophisticated sports cars like the Esprit. You know, they were moving away from those more humble beginnings, which ironically opened the door for another company to take the 7 to even greater heights.
And that's where Caterham enters the picture, becoming the torchbearer for the Lotus 7 legacy. They recognized something special in that design, something timeless, that transcended trends and those fleeting notions of modernization.
They did, and their story's even more fascinating. They initially built Series 4 cars before realizing that the true magic lay in that Series 3 design. But before we get into that, let's take a quick pause. And when we come back, we'll delve into how Caterham not only kept the 7 alive, but actually propelled it to new heights.
All right, so let's jump back into this Caterham era of the 7. They took over production in '73, and their journey is like a testament to recognizing true brilliance. Even when the original creator moves on, what was their initial approach?
Well, they actually started with the Series 4, honoring the agreement they had with Lotus. But they pretty quickly realized that the real demand was for the classic Series 3. They actually ran out of Series 4 kits surprisingly fast.
So it's like everyone's saying, hey, we want that pure 7 experience, the one that started it all. So Caterham wisely pivoted, essentially reviving a design that Lotus itself had moved away from. It's pretty amazing how they recognize that magic.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about their understanding of what made the 7 special. But they didn't just, replicate it. They saw the potential to enhance and refine the design without losing its soul.
Okay, so let's get into some of those improvements. One that stands out is the introduction of the Didion rear suspension. Now, for those of us who aren't suspension experts, can you break down why that was such a big deal?
Sure. So the D-down system was a significant upgrade, especially for a car like the 7. It reduced unsprung weight, which made the suspension much more responsive. So imagine you're driving on a twisty back road. The Didion suspension allowed the 7 to just hug the corners like it was on rails.
Yeah, it's like they took the 7's already legendary handling and amplified it. I've always thought of the 7 as like a go-kart for grown-ups. And this just takes that concept to another level. Now, they also widened the track, right? What did that achieve?
Yeah, widening the track basically gives the car a more stable base, especially, when you're pushing it through corners at speed. It all comes back to maximizing that thrilling, connected to the road driving experience that the 7 is famous for.
It's almost like they were obsessed with perfecting this pure, unfiltered driving experience. No electronic nannies, just you, the car, and the road. Now let's talk power. Because Caterham wasn't shy about offering a wide range of engines over the years.
Oh, definitely not. They sourced engines from Ford Rover Vauxhall. They even experimented with motorcycle engines. It's really quite an eclectic mix.
One engine that pops up a lot on our research is the Ford Crossflow. What made it such a good fit for the 7?
Well, the Crossflow, especially the Cosworth-tuned versions, was just a fantastic engine for the 7. It was relatively lightweight, easy to work on, and offered plenty of power for a car of the 7's size. And critically, it was known for its linear power delivery and responsiveness, which is perfect for a car that's all about driver engagement.
Yeah, I can almost hear that engine screaming as it revs through the gears. And then there were those motorcycle engine 7s, like the Blackbird and the Hayabusa. Talk about pushing the boundaries of performance.
Oh, those cars were absolute rockets. I mean, they took the 7's power-to-weight ratio to insane levels. Imagine a car that could hit 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. And this was back in the 90s.
It's mind-boggling. Caterham really embraced this idea of constantly challenging what a 7 could be. They experimented with wider track options, upgraded brakes, different chassis designs. It's like they were driven by this desire to continuously refine and evolve the 7.
And that's what makes their story so compelling. They took a design that could have easily faded away and turned it into a thriving icon, constantly pushing the boundaries, while staying true to that core philosophy of lightness and simplicity.
Speaking of staying true to the philosophy, Caterham took it a step further and expanded the 7 into an entire model range, didn't they? It's like they realized the one-size-fits-all approach wouldn't work for a car as unique as the Seven.
Exactly. They recognize that different drivers have different preferences. So they created models catering to a variety of driving styles and needs. You could have a 7 that was a purist's dream, a track-focused weapon, or something in between.
So let's walk through some of those models. What was the philosophy behind the Classic?
The Classic was all about preserving that traditional 7 experience,
Okay.
pure, unadulterated back-to-basics driving pleasure. But it wasn't stuck in the past. It had modern features like disc brakes and a slightly more comfortable interior.
Okay, so it was a nod to heritage, while still being a car you could comfortably enjoy on modern roads. Then there's the Road Sport, which sounds like it was designed to be a bit more versatile.
Yeah, exactly. The Road Sport was kind of the all-rounder. The 7 you could take on a spirited weekend drive, or even out on the track for some fun. It had more creature comforts and a slightly softer suspension setup than the Classic. But it still delivered that thrilling, connected driving experience.
And then things get really serious with the Superlight. This is where Caterham seems to have embraced that idea of less is more to the extreme.
The Superlight is a stripped-down, track-focused weapon. It's all about shedding every unnecessary ounce to maximize performance, lighter wheels, a minimalist interior, aerodynamic enhancements. It's like a 7 on a strict diet.
You can almost feel the intensity just thinking about it. And of course, we can't forget the legendary R500. This model really cemented the Seven's reputation as a giant killer.
Yeah, the R500 is an absolute beast. It takes the Superlight concept and just pushes it to the limit. We're talking about a car that could hold its own against much more expensive and exotic sports cars. Imagine a 7 hitting 60 miles per hour in under 3 seconds.
It's mind-blowing. It really shows how Caterham wasn't afraid to push boundaries and redefine what a 7 could be. And then at the top of the performance pyramid, there's the CSR.
The CSR was a truly revolutionary 7. It had this unique chassis design, inboard front suspension, an independent rear suspension. It was like a radical departure from the traditional formula.
It sounds like the CSR was designed to deliver like the ultimate in-7 performance,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of handling and grip. It's like Caterham was saying, we can do this. We can build a 7 that's a true supercar rival.
Exactly. They created a 7 for the 21st century, proving that this design, with its focus on lightness and simplicity, could still be relevant and competitive, even in a world of increasingly complex and technology-laden cars.
But it wasn't just about catering to hardcore enthusiasts. Caterham also created models like the Academy, which offered like a more accessible entry point into the world of 7 ownership.
Yeah, the Academy was brilliant. It provided a platform for aspiring racers and enthusiasts to experience the thrill of driving a 7, to get a taste of that pure, unfiltered driving experience, and, helped cultivate a whole new generation of 7 enthusiasts.
It's amazing how they managed to create such a diverse range of models. Appealing to such a broad spectrum of drivers, it speaks to their deep understanding of the 7's magic, its ability to connect with people on such a visceral level.
Yeah, it really does. But the 7 story doesn't end with Caterham. Its influence extends far beyond, inspiring countless replicas, custom builds, and even influencing modern car design.
It's true. The 7 has almost become like a genre unto itself, a blueprint for a certain type of sports car. It spawned an entire subculture of enthusiasts who build, modify, and race their own 7.
And that's what we'll explore next. The 7's enduring legacy, its impact on car culture, and why its design continues to resonate with enthusiasts even today. Stay tuned.
All right, so we've covered like a ton of ground here, from Lotus to Caterham and those crazy motorcycle engine 7s. But I think what's most fascinating is how the 7's influence extends far beyond its own lineage. Why is this car a design that's like over 6 decades old, still so relevant today?
Well, I think it really boils down to this core idea, the pursuit of a pure, unfiltered driving experience. In a world of, increasingly complex and digital cars, the 7 is refreshingly analog. It's all about that connection between the driver, the machine, and the road.
Yeah, there's no power steering to like mask the feedback, no electronic nannies to save you from yourself. It demands your full attention, your skill, your respect. It's almost like a form of automotive meditation.
Exactly. And that's why the 7 has inspired so many imitators over the years. Countless replicas, 7S cars, from companies like Westfield Donkerfort, even small independent builders.
It's like the 7 has become this archetype, a blueprint for a certain type of sports car. It spawned like an entire subculture of enthusiasts who build, modify, and race their own 7s.
And that DIY aspect is another crucial part of the 7's appeal. It's a car that invites you to tinker, to personalize, to make it your own. You can buy a complete Caterham 7, but you can also build one from a kit, or even source the parts yourself and build it from scratch.
It's like a giant Lego set for gearheads.
Mm.
And I bet there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of driving a 7 that you build with your own two hands.
You're absolutely right. It's a very personal and rewarding experience, and it all goes back to that core philosophy of simplicity and lightness. The Seven's design is relatively straightforward,
Yeah.
which makes it accessible to, amateur builders.
And it's not just the DIY scene that's been influenced by the 7.
Mm.
Even modern car design seems to be taking cues from its philosophy.
Mm.
We're seeing a renewed emphasis on lightweight materials, aerodynamic efficiency, a more driver-focused approach.
It's true. The Seven's DNA can be found in everything from, lightweight sports cars to high-performance supercars. It's almost like the Seven is a timeless design, an enduring symbol of driving purity that continues to inspire even decades after its creation.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes less is more, and in a world that's increasingly obsessed with complexity and technology, the Seven's simple brilliance shines even brighter.
Well said. The Seven's legacy is more than just about a particular car. It's about a philosophy, an approach to design and engineering that prioritizes the driving experience above all else.
Well, I don't know about you, but after this deep dive, I'm feeling the need to get behind the wheel of something lightweight and fun. Maybe even a 7.
I can't say I blame you. There's something truly magical about the 7A car that strips away all the distractions and allows you to experience the pure joy of driving.
This has been a fantastic journey through the world of the Lotus 7. Thank you all for joining us for this deep dive, especially to those of you listening from Vintage Car Chronicles on Spotify. Remember, a new episode drops every single day, so be sure to subscribe and check back in for your daily dose of automotive history and insights.
And as we wrap up, here is a final thought for you all to ponder. What is it about the Lotus 7? Its focus on the simplicity and lightness that has made it such an enduring icon, even inspiring modern car design. We'd love to hear your thoughts.